Hello and welcome back to another video. This video has been a very long time in coming, and that is my video covering the Sapphic Trifecta. I just kept forgetting to do it because I have the memory of a goldfish. If you don't know what the Sapphic Trifecta is, I will tell you. The Sapphic Trifecta is a grouping together of three very popular Sapphic fantasy books that were all published in 2021. I did a little bit of digging, and I believe that the concept for the Sapphic Trifecta first appeared on TikTok and then just kind of grew from there. It's a little hard to pinpoint when it started. I don't know who started it. If anyone knows who originally came up with the idea of the Sapphic Trifecta, please let me know down below. But it kind of grew from there, and I have finally read all three books in the Sapphic Trifecta, and I thought I would sit down and discuss each one, the themes in each book, what each book is about, and just kind of spread the love of the Sapphic Trifecta because each book is truly amazing. I am going to be talking about them in order of which one I read first, second, third, and while I did love each one and I gave each one 5 stars, I will also be ranking from favorite to least favorite. Even though they're 5 stars, I still have a favorite, and I will also only be basing it off of the first book. Each of these books is the first book in a series. So far, the only one that has a sequel coming out is the Jasmine Throne, the sequel, The Oleander Sword, which I did recently read and I loved it. I have a review on my Goodreads and my Instagram. I was lucky enough to snag an arc. But the Unbroken, we only have a title for the book so far, and I don't believe a sequel has yet been announced for She Who Became the Sun. I think there will be a sequel, we just haven't heard anything about it, or I haven't heard anything about it. So for fairness, I'm only going to be talking about the first books. So a little bit on the Sapphic Trifecta. I have notes here. I always have my notes. You guys know by now, I always got my notes. So started in 2021 on TikTok and grew from there. Some of the similarities between these books that may have contributed towards them all being grouped together. A, they're all like fantasy. B, they all have orange covers. They are all Sapphic, and they're all written by non-white Sapphic authors set in non-Eurocentric fantasy worlds. And again, they were all published in 2021. Also, they were pretty popular. Each book was kind of like its own big release, and that, you know, people love to group things together. I mean, if you were around back in the day on Tumblr, this, you know, the holy emo trinity, you know, people love to put things in groups of 3s. So that is the Sapphic Trifecta, and I will start with the one that I read first, which was She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. So, She Who Became the Sun, the synopsis kind of goes like this. So, China is currently under Mongol rule. Things aren't going great for everyone. In particular, in this village where our book starts, everyone is starving. There's not really a lot of food. And our main character is the daughter of her family, and because she's the daughter, she's not really valued, you know, she's always kind of the underdog, and her brother is the one her brother, Zhu Changba, is the one who is valued, and he is supposed to have a great destiny in store for him, and he's going to become a great, you know, powerful leader, but no one really knows how that's going to happen. And then one day bandits attack her village and they kill her family, they kill a bunch of people, and her brother just kind of ends up, he doesn't get killed by the bandits, but he ends up so depressed that he just kind of wastes away and dies. And so she's left all on her own. And she decides to take on her brother's identity, become Zhu Changba, and she goes to a monastery and gains access eventually and becomes a monk and spends a lot of her time, you know, in the monastery, becoming a monk, all those things. But then her monastery is attacked and destroyed by the Mongols for supporting the rebellion against Mongol rule. And so she decides to take her brother's, you know, foretold destiny for herself. You know, she's not her old self anymore. She is Zhu Changba. She is her brother. She is going to take his destiny. She will be great. And so she sets off on this path to lead the rebellion. And oh my god, you guys, this book was flippin' fantastic. I would definitely, so this book is like definitely historical fantasy with what I would say is magical realism. You're never quite entirely sure if the magic is real or if it's, you know, conjured up to appear to be real. It just kind of keeps you guessing, which is something I really loved. I love magical realism. It's set in an alternate version of China, and it is the story of the Hongwu Emperor, who is the founder of the Ming Dynasty. This is definitely a political, like, military fantasy. There's so many battles and military planning and like attacks and sieges, and I love that kind of stuff. It's so cool, and Shelley Parker Chan is a amazing writer when it comes to military fantasy. This book is sapphic and also genderqueer. The main character definitely not struggles with her gender, but her gender isn't cis because she takes on her brother's identity. She's not, you know, a girl anymore. And this book really touches on a lot of transgender feelings and ideas, and it was just so fascinating to read in a historical fantasy setting. There's also disability rep, which was really, really cool. I'm not going to say anything more about that because it is technically a spoiler for the book, but that is also in there. This book is definitely slow. It takes a while to build. So if you pick this book up and you're like, oh man, like I've read the first couple chapters, it's really not pulling me in. This is the kind of book that you have to give time to in order to get the payoff. It's not like crazy like hook from the start. You got to give it time to slowly build. And this is an issue that I do have with a lot of people now who read and review books is, oh, I wasn't hooked from the first page. And there's nothing wrong with being hooked from the first page, but sometimes you have to give a book time to build in order to get that crazy payoff at the end, because She Who Became the Sun has crazy payoff at the end. It was absolutely show-stopping. The ending blew my mind. This book is also very character-driven. I would say that the plot is shaped by the characters instead of the plot shaping the characters, if that makes sense. These characters in this book bend the world to fit them. Everything that happens is because of these characters forcing things to happen, having such strong faith in themselves of being able to do what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, that things just kind of bend to them. So if you love character-driven fantasy, this is definitely one for you. And everyone in this book is incredibly morally gray. Like, there were things that happened in this book that I was like, excuse me? Like, you're supposed to be the hero. And I love a good morally gray protagonist. And the antagonists are also morally gray. Everyone in this book is doing everything for their own personal gain and nothing else. Which, when you have that in a political military fantasy, is just chef's kiss. Perfection. Out of the Sapphic Trifecta, I would say that She Who Became the Sun is my least favorite. While I did absolutely love it, the other two in the Sapphic Trifecta were just even better, but I did really love it, and I do highly recommend it, especially if you love betrayal in your fantasy books, because this book has a whopping helping of betrayal. And so overall, this one was obviously 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. It is on my all-time favorite book list. So let's get on to the next one. On to book 2 this is the second book in the Sapphic Trifecta that I read, The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. And oh my god, what a powerhouse of a book. Okay, so the plot. Very difficult to explain without spoilers, so I'm just going to read the back to you. Trapped by her despotic brother within the crumbling walls of an ancient temple, Princess Malini dreams of vengeance. Forced to disavow her birthright and her power because of her past, maidservant Priya dreams of freedom. In a world beset by wild magic and turbulent uprising, their destinies will become irrevocably tangled, and together they will set an empire ablaze. This book, you guys, was so incredible. I read it for a book club and it blew my mind. So let's get into it. I have my notes. The Jasmine Throne is South Asian inspired fantasy with morally gray lesbian main characters. The lesbian main characters in this book are monstrous, beautiful, incredible, vicious, willing to do whatever it takes to see their plots and their plans through. And there's nothing I love more than a morally gray lesbian. This is definitely like conqueror versus conquered, colonizer versus colonized. I'm unsure of using the word colonizer because in this instance, you know, none of the characters are white. So I hesitate to use the word colonizer. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm just going to use like conqueror versus conquered. So much politics, so many plots, so many subplots. Love a good fantasy book with like politics and like political like subplots. Like I love that shit. I wouldn't describe this book as enemies to lovers because they're not really enemies. It's more like they're using each other for their own gain, but then fall in love along the way, which is awesome. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, but like, I love that trope. Like, what would you call that trope? I'm not sure what you would call it, but whatever it is, I love it. The magic system in this book is plant-based, and it is insane. Like, I don't even know how Tasha Suri came up with this. I have been saying this ever since I reviewed the Oleander Sword, but her mind, incredible. Like, I wish I could write half this good, you know, like, it's incredible. This book also has a lot of commentary on religion and how people can become extremely fanatical and lose their way and become really shitty, horrible people because of religion. And again, I knew I said I wasn't going to talk about sequels, but this commentary is only expanded upon in the sequel, The Oleander Sword, which comes out on August 16th. This book is also very character driven. The characters are the ones shaping the plot, shaping the world. Rather than events in the world pushing the characters, it's the characters pushing the events. This one was also very slow to build. There were a lot of chapters from like minor characters in the world, and it took a while for the pieces to kind of come together, but once I got about a third of the way through it, it was like smooth sailing from there, and I loved it. Tasha Suri's writing is immaculate. It's incredible. She writes in such a vivid, vibrant way that you're reading and you can just feel like if you looked up, you would be in the book. 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely incredible. Based off of first books in the series, The Jasmine Throne is my second favorite in the Sapphic Trifecta, and I highly recommend everyone read it. Tasha Suri is now one of my all-time favorite authors ever. I will read anything she writes. So yes, everyone go read The Jasmine Throne. And finally, onto the third and last book, and the one that I read most recently, as in April, The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This book is my favorite out of the entire Sapphic Trifecta, based on first books, because this one doesn't have a sequel yet. The title has been announced, but I don't remember when it's being released, and it doesn't even have a cover yet, but I am very excited for when it does, because this book like ended on such a cliffhanger that, you know, me and cliffhangers, I love to hate them. I have a terrible memory for remembering synopsises, so I'm just gonna read it off the back of the book again. Terrain is a soldier, stolen as a child and raised to kill and die for the Empire. She owes loyalty only to her fellow conscripts. But now, her company has been sent back to her homeland to stop a rebellion, and the ties of blood may be stronger than she thought. Luca needs a turncoat, someone desperate enough to tiptoe the bayonet's edge between treason and orders. Someone who can sway the rebels towards peace, while Luca focuses on what really matters, getting her uncle off the throne. Through assassinations and massacres in bedrooms and war rooms, Terrain and Luca will haggle over the price of a nation. But some things aren't for sale. This book is North African inspired fantasy and is commentary on colonialism set in a fantasy setting. The colonizers that Luca is a part of are very heavily based on what I think is French colonizers. A lot of their names and stuff sound very French. This book has butch representation. Touraine is a butch lesbian and has my heart. Out of all Sapphic characters I've read, my girlfriend's going, I thought I had your heart. No, Touraine does. This book also has like uneven power dynamics in toxic relationships. Touraine and Luca obviously are not a relationship that is going to go well because you have the power like imbalance of, you know, colonizer versus colonized, you know, ruler versus soldier. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. Disability rep, Luca is disabled. This book is extremely political. If you were ever a fan of books like Game of Thrones, etc., because of all the politics. Another one, if you were a fan of The Wheel of Time and all the like subplots and assassinations and how everyone has their own like hidden agenda, this is the book for you. Highly recommend it. It's also like magic versus non-magic. You know, the colonizers are very like, they hate magic, they hate all that kind of stuff, and then, you know, the rebels are trying to regain the magic that was lost, that was destroyed. This book was fast-paced from the very start. It looks like a chunky book, it is a chunky book, but it didn't feel very long. I buddy read this with a friend and we just flew through it. This book did not let up for a second. From the very start, it was like, boom, hit the ground running and like, whoa. The world building in this book is incredible. It is so vivid in your head. Again, like with the Jasmine Throne, you feel like if you look up, you would be in the world in the book, and the characters are so well written and real. And this book, I would definitely say, is plot driven versus character driven. Yes, obviously the characters' decisions that they make affect the plot, but the plot is like outside driving forces are what move the characters along versus the characters being the moving forces in the plot. And I love a good plot-driven fantasy, and this book had it all. Also, this cover is just like so beautiful. I highly recommend this book. This was my favorite out of the entire Sapphic Trifecta. I would give it 1,000,000 stars if I could, and I am eagerly anticipating the sequel because holy heck, the ending to this one had me floored. Absolutely floored. So that was the Sapphic Trifecta. Aren't they beautiful? I wish I owned the special editions of these books, but they're expensive. Have you guys read any of the Sapphic Trifecta? Let me know. Again, I highly recommend all of these books. I know I ranked them, but all of these were 5 stars. It was really hard to rank them because, again, I loved all 3 of them so much. And I'm definitely going to have to make another video when all the sequels are out. So far, once again, the Jasmine Throne is the only one that has a sequel out, or, you know, in a couple days we'll have the sequel out. So I thought it was kind of unfair to base it off of sequels, because if I was including sequels, the Jasmine Throne would be my favorite, because the second book was literally, it's going to be one of my top reads of the year for sure. Like, I could not believe how fantastic the Oleander Sword was. But I felt like that wasn't really fair to these 2 books, which don't have their sequels out yet, so I figured I would just keep it to the first 3 books. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Have you read the Sapphic Trifecta? What is your opinion on the Sapphic Trifecta? Do you like grouping things into 3s? Because I personally love grouping things into 3s. I think it's fun. I think it's very satisfying. Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.